Good morning, everyone. As always, it's such a pleasure to be here on a Sunday morning. Not quite as sunny a Sunday morning as we usually have in Florida, but at least it's a little cooler. Have we anybody here for the first time? I don't. You were here for the first time already? I don't think so. But anyway, also we're now streaming live on the internet, so I'll just briefly tell about the format of our meeting. First of all, I'm going to do the opening reading from The Way, the Truth and the Life, followed by a short opening prayer. I have our guest speaker who's come all the way from, you flew in this morning, right? From Porto Alegre, Port St. Lucie, and then we'll have passages organised by myself and the closing prayer. Okay, so starting off, let's this passage from Emmanuel is called The Greatest Treasure. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And that was a quotation from Jesus in the book of Luke 12:34. As long as places of worship are devoted to the divinity of the Father, there are rooms in the boundless house of God, wherein Jesus administers his assets to souls on earth regardless of their religious affiliation. These subdivisions of the eternal sanctuary house the wards of Christ in their various degrees of understanding. Each one instinctively reveals to the Lord where his or her treasure is. On account of this, in the diverse rooms of this house, Jesus is always receiving contradictory or counterproductive prayers from our countless believers possessed of a childish mentality. He does not answer such prayers. Selfish persons speak about their treasures, touting their precarious possessions. Misers talk about petty preoccupations. Hedonists display insatiable appetites. Fanatic repeat insane requests. They all present their wounded desires as being their greatest suffering. Christ does in fact hear their prayers and waits for the opportunity to show them his imperishable treasure. He listens in silence, because the young plant needs time to grow. He waits trustingly, for he needs the collaboration of resolute and sincere disciples in order to extend his divine apostolate. When the time comes, they appear under his sublime influence, and the scenery of Earth's places of worship changes. These are not only believers who show up to pray, but resolute workers who have come to work, full of courage and ready to die so that others may live. They exemplify self-denial and detachment. They reveal the Father's will personally, and by doing so, they broaden the world's understanding of the largest treasure, which is summed up in the winning of the light eternal and love universal that have already enriched their enlightened spirits. Let's go back to the beginning here. I found this chapter a little bit, and immediately difficult, not difficult to understand, but a little bit unclear, and I read it a few times. So what I want to do is just go back and try and get a bit more insight and share my views with you. He starts off by talking about, I think, all the various religious denominations of the world, of this planet, maybe other planets, and how we're all at different stages of our evolution in terms of our spiritual evolution. But what in the second paragraph there, he's saying that really we make our level of understanding very clear. In other words, we can't hide anything from our thoughts, our souls. God is always with us and knows us very, very well. And then he talks about, obviously, the less evolved spirits, be they materialist, hedonist, just fascinated with pleasure, misers with money, and so on. And really, he listens to them, but he does not respond to them. And what he's saying, again, Emmanuel is saying here that eventually those spirits will evolve. They will start to reach out. They will start to see the light. And Jesus is always there for them, to support them and help them in their path. So really, I think that is the message. We're all in different stages of evolution. No matter what the stage, we have the support but Jesus our Master. And it's up to us, really, to evolve and grow. So that's what I took away from this morning. So with that said, I'd like to ask you to join me in an opening prayer. Quieten our minds from our daily challenges and thoughts, and switch on and focus more on our inner self and the good spirits, with the help of the good spirits that are around us. We ask, dear Master Jesus, dear Father, be with us today, so again we can open our hearts and our mind to get the most from your teachings, to help us along this evolutionary path, so that one day we too can be truly evolved spirits, in tune, in harmony with the Lord's teachings. We pray for all the other good members of our family here at Conscious Living who couldn't be with us today. Send our blessings also to those watching outside but being with us, so again we can all maximize the learning today. We ask that the good spirits, in particular the guardian angel of our good friend Terry, help him to deliver the message so we get the full understanding of his good words. We ask these things in Jesus' name, so be it. So I'd like to invite I wouldn't say our good friend Terry, certainly, but Terry, if you don't know, Terry was and still is a member of Conscious Living, even though he's living in Porto Alegre. But, I'm joking. So thanks for coming all the way down, and we really appreciate seeing you again. It's great. Terry and I started doing Spirits book classes together some 5 years ago now. That's how we both came into the centre about the same time. And now Terry and his wife Biga are doing a great job up in Port St. Lucie, creating a new English group, both the Spirits book class and English lectures, right? I've had the pleasure of going up there once or twice, and wish them all the luck, and I'm sure it's going to go.
Come many more times.
Okay. So with that said, Terry, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, David. Good morning. It's so nice to be here amongst you lovely people. Thank you for your warm welcome. And I love coming here because you can just feel the love in the room. That's great. Thank you. Just as I guess it's about a year and 4 or 5 months since my wife and I moved north to Port St. Lucie. And since we're in the political time of year, the last that I was here, and I recall, I was the only Republican in the whole center. Is there any others? Oh, thank you.
What a dilemma.
We do have a dilemma this year, don't we? Well, onwards and upwards. I'm going to address the topic today. There are many mansions in my Father's house. I received my information and resources from the Gospel According to Spiritism, the Spirits book, the Spiritist Review from 1858, After Death by Leon Dennis, and the Kepler Project, and also NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. I'm literally shocked at how close the tie-in was with David's reading and the Way, the Truth, and the Life, and what we're going to be addressing here today. The Gospel reading at the beginning of chapter 3 is as follows. Let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe in me also. There are many mansions in my Father's house. If it were not so, would I have told you that? I am going to prepare a place for you, and after I have gone and prepared the place, I will return and take you with me, so that where I am, you may be also. I remember as a boy, probably 12, 13 years old, sitting in the congregation of my family's Methodist church and hearing the minister talk about this particular Bible verses. And I thought to myself, now I'm old enough to get a little mathematics going. You know, at the time maybe we had 250 million people in the United States, and who knows how many billions throughout the world. How many are going to die in a given year? Quite a few. So I'm thinking to myself, that's got to be some big house. A really big house to accommodate millions of people. This chapter of John 14 is a very important part of the New Testament to me. It represents a time, and the last time that Jesus is going to be with his disciples as an incarnate person. He is addressing the disciples at the Last Supper when he is saying this, or immediately right after the Last Supper when he is saying this. And when the disciples heard that he was leaving, they began to feel depressed. They began to feel isolated if they were going to be without their leader, Jesus. And Jesus said to them, don't worry. I'm going to pray for my Father to send the Comforter, the Holy Spirit. He will make you strong. He will teach you everything you need to know. Of course, Jesus knew that within 48 hours he was going to die. How did he know that? Well, I think Jesus' statement, I am in my Father, and my Father is in me, makes that fully comprehensible. There are a couple of instruments that come into play way after Jesus. The microscopes, which enabled us to see things very, very small. And the telescope, which enabled us to see things very, very far away. I remember being in the previous center on 125th Street, and our friend Louis Lima come to visit with us and gave a talk on spirits on other planets. I must admit that when I heard him talk, I thought maybe he had a little loose marble. But after studying and being mentored by some of the fabulous women that I've had in my life, like Andrea, like Susanna, like Abigail, and gentlemen such as our dear friend Marcel, and other folks that I've learned from here in Spiritism. I've come to believe that that is so. This, of course, is our solar system. We can't do it in true relativity to distance. I don't know if you remember when when I was in school, we learned from the inside out, beginning with Mercury and then moving to Venus. It went like Mary's violet eyes make John stay up nights praying. Did anybody ever learn that? No? Okay. But that's our solar system. And Lewis suggested that there are spirits that are on Pluto, Saturn, Mars, Venus, Earth, of course, Jupiter. Spirits book, question number 55. Are all the globes that revolve in space inhabited? And the Spirits book, Spirits answered, yes. And the people of the earth are far from being, as you suppose, the first in intelligence, goodness, and general development. There are many men having a high opinion of themselves who even imagine that your little globe, that is the earth, of all the countless myriads of globes around you, has the privilege of being inhabited by reasoning beings. They fancy that God has created the universe only for them. Does this look familiar to anybody? The Milky Way galaxy? You can see where our little point is at our sun and our solar system. Does anybody have some ideas how big this thing is? If you see from top to bottom or from left to right, it's approximately 100,000 light years across. This represents the number of suns close to us in this galaxy that have properties similar to our own sun. Approximately the same temperature, approximately the same gases, that have planets revolving around them. Well, within 4 light years of radius of us, we've identified 385 suns in the galaxy similar to our solar system. Now I'm going to go back up here for a second. Excuse me. If we are that little tiny part in the sun, it's 100,000 years, light years from across the galaxy. Then, with only 4 light years of us, we have found 380 potential solar systems. Then how many more can there be in the Milky Way galaxy? That was a 2009. They currently now, as of 2015, have counted over 1,200 in approximately the same area. That might be a sky that we might see on a clear summer night with no clouds. Anybody recognize the Big Dipper? And up on top, the Little Dipper? Please pay attention inside the Big Dipper. You're going to see it. It's going to be very quick. Thank you, Marcel. Watch what happens here. They're focusing in on an empty space. Yeah, please. You can close it there. This? Yeah, that's fine. We went through a very illegible place where there looked like there was nothing in the skies within the Big Dipper. Now keep in mind, this represents only a pinpoint of the whole ellipse, of the universe. Now, what we're seeing here was the last shot where it focused on that first blank area. Then you could see additional lights. Then they went to another area where there was no light and expanded and then wound up with this. Now what we're seeing here are not stars. These are galaxies. Some equal to the Milky Way galaxy. Some greater than the Milky Way galaxy. Now keep in mind, that was only a little pinpoint of sky. Take into consideration the whole 360 degrees, the potential for other solar systems and other lives is just tremendous. God has peopled the globes of the universe with living beings, all of whom concur in working out the aims of his providence. To believe that the presence of living beings is confined to one point of the universe inhabited by us is to cast doubt on the wisdom of God, who has made nothing in vain and who must therefore have assigned to all other globes of the universe a destination more important than that of gratifying our own eyes with the spectacle of a starry night. Moreover, there is nothing in the position, the size, or physical constitution of the earth to warrant the supposition that it alone, of the countless myriads of globes disseminated throughout the infinity of space, has the privilege of being inhabited. That's from the Spirit's Book, chapter 3. The Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 3. Question number 56 from the Spirit's Book. Is the physical constitution of all the globes the same? The Spirit's answer, no. They do not resemble one another. The physical constitution of the various worlds not being the same for all, does it follow that the beings who inhabit them have different organizations? Undoubtedly it does. Just as you in your world, fishes are organized for living in the water and birds are organized for living in the air. Are the planets furthest from the sun stinted in light and heat, the sun only appearing to them of the size of one of the fixed stars? Do you suppose that there are no other sources of light and heat other than the sun? And do you count for nothing the action of electricity, which in certain worlds plays a very much more important part than in your earth? Besides, how do you know that the beings of those worlds see in the same manner as you do and with the aid of organs such as yours? Go back there for a second. It calls to light and to us that there can be a lot of life species that are not like us, that are out there in those great horizons, but have the same purpose of being children of God and to glorify God. Susanna recommended that I take a look at this publication, which is called the Spiritist Review. Personally, I had never heard of it before. But it is a compilation of newsletters that were produced by Allan Kardec in the time period of 1858 for, I think, about 5 or 6 years. Is that right? I'm amazed after I got into it, the science that was passed through by the spirits to Allan Kardec. And then keep in mind, this is 1858, and what we read was just from, let's say, the 1860s. How'd they know all that? Thank you, good spirits. The plurality of worlds. I think that you and I have probably asked this question before. Who has not wondered on considering the moon, other celestial bodies, if those globes, those planets are inhabited? Couldn't it be that it's comprised of unknown elements of such a low density that they do not produce appreciable refraction? Now understand that in these planets and solar systems and galaxies, we can only see them if there is a reflection or refraction of some kind of light. Okay, we say the same about water and liquid that may exist there. Water on the Mars, perhaps we have life on Mars. As with respect to living beings, wouldn't that be a denial of the divine power to judge impossible? An organization different from what we know when before our eyes the providence of nature extends with such an admirable solitude up to the smallest insect and provides all beings with the appropriate organs for the ambient area where they live, be it in water or in land or submerged in darkness or exposed to sunlight. Had we never seen a fish, we could not have conceived beings living in water. We'd have no idea of their structure. Until recently, who would have believed that an animal could live indefinitely inside a rock? But not mentioning these extremes, could the beings that live under the fire of our torrid zone, that is, deep in the earth, under volcanoes, exist in the polar caps? Yet, in the ice zones, where there are beings organized to live in such a condition that could not withstand the scorching heat of a vertical sun. I don't know if any of you folks have seen some of the programs on TV recently, like Discovery under the Arctic North Pole. Why then can one not admit that certain beings can be built in order to live in other globes and in a medium completely different from us? That's from the collection of Allan Kardec's newsletters. Anybody been to the Grand Canyon? Looks like the Grand Canyon, right? This is not the Grand Canyon. We talked about things far away. Now we're going to talk about things that are really small. What you're looking at is a piece of steel. A flat piece of steel that has a crack in it approximately 1 micron. A micron is 1/1000th of a millimeter. Now, the electron microscope that's been used now to be able to determine certain things was used here to look at that crack in a piece of steel. Incredible, isn't it? In a prior slide, we talked about the possibility of life inside of a rock. What we're looking here is a meteorite that was found on the South Pole and in the Allen Hills area of Antarctica that was believed to have originated from Mars, you'll see a structure right here that looks like a segmented worm. And it is. But what you're looking at is perhaps one of the smallest living things ever discovered inside a meteorite believed to have come from Mars. The electron microscope revealed that chain structures. This is, help me with this word, Halocephalus mephisto.
You don't need help?
This is a very small microscopic animal living approximately 3 miles below the surface of the earth with very little water, no air, and under tremendous pressure. Well, how can it live? I don't know, but it does. It was found by geology people looking for potential oil drill sites. So we have things really large, very far away, and we have things very small. If you take nothing else away from this little chat of mine, I'd like you to take this away. The spiritual world is composed of souls of all humans on this earth and other spheres, released from the corporal connections by the same way all the humans are animated by incarnated spirits. There is therefore solidarity between these two worlds. Human beings will have the same qualities and imperfections of the spirits to whom they are united. The spirits will be more or less good or bad, depending on the progress they have made during their corporal existence. These few words summarize the whole Spiritist doctrine. As the acts of human beings are the product of their free will, they retain the stamp of perfection or imperfection of the Spirit that animates them. Okay, briefly. In the Spirit's book, starting with question 101, we're told there are different levels of spirits. We have imperfect spirits, we have good spirits, and we have pure spirits. I urge you, when you have the time, to read those questions, number 101 through 112 in the Spirit's book, and you'll gain a lot more insight of these different classes of spirits. Now, they start out with the 10th class, and I don't want to get too far into this, except to briefly describe them that they are impure spirits. They're not good. They're bad. They want to create havoc and cause trouble amongst men. The next are frivolous spirits. They want to have fun. The next class, they believe they know more about science than they do. The 7th class is neutral spirits. They're in between. The 6th class are noisy and boisterous. And now we start getting to the good spirits. I hope we're here. Benevolent spirits, learned spirits, wise spirits, second-class spirits, and pure spirits. The most important is the first class. These are the pure spirits. This is the Jesus level. They have only one level, and they have passed through all of the other above levels. Now, you say, Dyer, why are you talking about this? Well, I've tried to show you the potential that there are of spirits in this class category. That's where we're going to go. And it goes back to the original reading that I gave you from John 1 to 3, that Jesus said, I am going to go and I'm going to prepare a place for you. Who knows where our place is going to be, but it's prepared for us. This is a great book, by the way, that I received from my friend David. And I also was told about this book by Susanna. So I want to give them credit for that. Chapter 33, Life in Space. According to certain religious doctrines, the earth is the center of the universe, and the skies are bent over our heads like a canopy. In accordance with the Spirit's teaching, modern science has shown the universe, sprinkled with countless populated worlds, would send a mortal blow to the theories that we are the most important. As we grow, remember a little bit what we talked about here today. The next time you look up and you see the Milky Way, and you see that empty space in there, it's not an empty space. There's things that are beyond that, and beyond that, and beyond that. So keep looking up. One of the things I want to go back and talk a little bit about, in the beginning, when Jesus was talking about leaving, and he said that he would send the Holy Spirit, the Comforter, and he said that he would pray for his Father to give the disciples strength, confidence when they were weak. There was a event which is called Pentecost. Pentecost took place 50 days after the crucifixion of Jesus. Assuming Jesus was crucified on the Sabbath, Passover, which he was, I'm assuming it was a Saturday. 7 weeks later would be 49 days. The next day, a Sunday, becomes the Pentecost, 50 days after. At the Pentecost, the disciples were gathered in the upper room, in the same area where the Last Supper was held. Many believers were in the area and were waiting for the disciples to come back out of the room. It is at this point that the Holy Spirit began his work here. As the disciples are leaving the upper room, there is a very high wind that comes whoosh, into the area. And the disciples were from different parts, and the people that were there spoke in different languages. When the disciples came out and they started to speak, everyone was hearing the translation in their own language, be it Greek, Arabic, Aramaic, Italian, whatever that language was, the people that were there were understanding it. That is my understanding of tongues when they said the disciples came and were speaking in tongues. What they were doing was speaking what they found out. And 10 minutes ago, they were scared. They didn't know what to do. But now they have courage. They're strong. They're confident. And they begin to tell the story. And that is how Christianity began to grow. I thank you for your time this morning. It's great being with you. I hope I didn't bore you with some of the science stuff. Thank you.
If there's anyone with questions, you want to share something, we are here. Terry are here.
Well, Terry, I've got to compliment you on your scientist.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, that was a
Wait,
pleasant surprise.
you're talking about a guy with a liberal arts background here. I'm not one of those engineers like you.
No,
Scientists.
but just to talk a little bit more about the possibility of other lives on other planets. The Kepler telescope has been studying what you call exoplanets, which are planetary systems that show revolutions of planets going around. The telescope actually detects the fall when the planet goes in front of the sun, or that of the sun, that is. And, you know, I think there's more than 1,000 exoplanets now that have, by the information, they have the same temperature zones as the Earth. They have moons. They have the same conditions we have here. And this is just, again, is a small area. So it's impossible, in my opinion, that there cannot be another planet out there without life. There's got to be not just one or billions, probably billions of planets. It's just statistically impossible that we're the only one. So
Thank you.
I'll put that down.
And I do think it's statistically impossible. Yes, Veronica?
What level would that put us on your, you know, on your scale of spirits, from, you know, all that you've been
For you, I'd make you a 9.
No.
Can you repeat the question again? Can you repeat the question?
Yes, the question was, on the scale of spirits that we looked at what level
It's your-
are we?
Yeah.
And I can't answer that question. I don't know.
That sounds right.
We are. That's the beauty of reincarnation. Because at the spirit realm, we are, because of the law of affinity, we go automatically to where we belong. Where your heart is where your treasure will be. As the initial reading that David brought to us. So it's automatically, the law of affinity will drive you to find the ones that get in affinity with you. But being incarnated, it's the beauty, because here we have to deal with this immense diversity of spirits with different levels, because it's very easy to be good among good. Being good among the imperfections, the imperfect beings, that's the challenge. So we are here to learn. We are here to get like challenged by this possibility. So I would assume that Earth is this immense laboratory where we will find, can you go back? You can find like imperfect spirits. You can find good spirits, incarnated, pure spirits. I guess only Christ at this time. At this time, Christ. It's the governor of our planet. But we are like spread out like from the imperfect spirits. We are in between the imperfect and the good. I wouldn't say that we are good. We are like, because sometimes we have frivolous thoughts. We have like envious. We have this, we have that. So we are like fluctuating, ups and down, ups and down.
Very
Because
good.
Susanna was saying once to us that we're like in a expiatory level, so we're like low on the scale considering, you know, all the higher spirits. Like, so that's why I asked. 'Cause
Yeah, we probably aren't, but I've got great news for everybody. I really do. It is going to take us, some of us, a very, very long time. Some of us a little shorter than others. But we will all become pure spirits.
It's a matter of time and will.
Amen.
The right choices.
Yes, John.
I thought it interesting in the Spirits book, we're looking for life on other planets. And we're looking for life as we know it. But the Spirits book tell us real simply, that example, I get a big kick out of Jupiter. That is, according to the Spirits book, the place to go when we leave. Because when you incarnate in Jupiter, you are much less physical, you float above the surface, and Jupiter supposedly is a really neat place if you're not composed like we are, but are more transparent and don't even walk on the ground. So I thought it interesting. We look for life like ours, it doesn't have to be like ours.
I'd like to be on the train to Jupiter with you, John.
Well, actually, there is a train which is called Juno, which is it arrived in the outskirts of Jupiter a few weeks ago, and by August, it started transmitting pictures. So maybe we'll see those other individuals there.
Yeah.
And it's also a gaseous planet. There's no solid matter as we know from information.
As I started this little study in preparation for this talk, I became I told you about my doubt with Louis Lima with his talk.
Little.
Little loose marbles. And when I've seen our resources and have read and tried to find as many cross references as I could for that material, it's the truth. It is what it is.
So you
Yes, Marcelo.
talk about time. Time is a factor of ours, right? So the snail time is different than the hummingbird time, and therefore our time is different. So when you say it's going to take a lot of time for us, but for God, it's just like that, right? And I think that's where we as we start learning about other realms and levels, I think the notion of time and space disappears. So the other thing is like this is a perfect presentation on the three pillars of the doctrine, right? Like you mentioned, 1857, 54, they start merging philosophy, science, and religion. And this is a good example of how the enlightened spirits, how God gave us this as the third constellations,
The consoler,
Yeah.
the third revelation.
yeah, so like how everything will marry, how everything will begin to make sense. This is great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's nice to see you.
Sure, Claudia, it's great to see you.
I just want to add something, that we talked about all the possibilities of places in this universe where the spirits can live, but I just want to add something for us to contemplate the so many worlds that we can actually live when we talk about when we spirits are in between incarnations, because we have a fascination with no solar, as if no solar is a place where we all will go.
It's the only
The
destination.
only destination. So yeah, so we do have, in a physical sense, so many possibilities for us to live when we are incarnate. But there are as many possibilities for us to live where we are discarnate and in between incarnations.
Thank you very much, Claudia. One of the things I was going to say, and I said, no, I can't do that. At least when, I don't want to say this. Excuse me. As we have discussed here today, and with your question regarding NASA and all it's not millions of possibilities, it's billions of possibilities. Well, if there's that many possibilities for life, then there's just as many possibilities for non-solars.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Many mansions.
Many mansions. And back to, wouldn't it have been funny, and this is what I was trying to recall, how Jesus would have been able to say to the disciples and to the people at the time, look, we've got planets that are out there circling the sun. We've got constellations, we've got stars, we've got planets, we've got solar systems, we've got galaxies.
Gravitational forces. And
Gravitational force. Can you imagine the disciples trying to understand and the people of that time trying to understand? They would have tried to stone them on the spot, right? But the word mansions, in my Father's house are many mansions, was a good metaphor and a good picture for the time. So with that, thank you again for letting me be with you, and I love being here.
Come more often.
Invite me.
You will.
Thank you.
It was great having you here. And it was a wonderful lecture.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go to the second part of our meeting, which is the healing hands. It's nothing different than Jesus did and taught the disciples at the beginning. To put the hands and be a channel of the great love that is surrounding the universe. Through the help of the good spirits, they're working in this small room, in this small place. We're conducting the passes here for the ones that doesn't know what it is. And I'm going to invite all the pass givers to be in position. We're conducting this here.
Oh, the children.
Keep your thoughts in prayer, asking for Jesus and the benevolent spirits to help us in this moment. You're coming here. Just one more minute. Asking children.
with our hearts linked with by this immense love that is surrounding and embracing the whole earth, asking the presence of the good spirits, the benevolent spirits that stay with us in this moment, and asking the presence of Jesus to help us to overcome the obstacles that we all face in order to strengthen our faith in a moment that we will be happy with plenitude. And that's why we are gathering here every Sunday, so we can remember that there is hope, there is love, much love than despair. All we have to do is just switch something inside of us and put our will to be connecting our being, our inner being, with the immense source of love and peace. Bless each and every one in this room, their families, their loved ones, helping us always to understand that there is an infinite amount of love that rules the whole universe, and in time we will be the helpers of Christ. We'll be experiencing the love that surrounds the whole universe. Thank you so much, and so be it.
Okay, it's good to be here. I don't know if we have like any advices, any messages. No messages? No? Thank you so much. Go in peace.
Drink the water.
Drink the water, yes, by the...
When you walk in the water.
Yeah.